both sides of the pond.
We now welcome in our Duck Side of the Pond segment. It is Max Torres from Ducks Digest joining us on the Oregon Man Clinics hotline here in the Bigfoot Beverages studios on the Jerry's Home Improvement Game Day Show. Max, thank you for joining us as always.
Not a problem, Ryan. Always excited to talk some Ducks with you, and man, we got a big week to talk about this time.
Yeah, you had an extra level of enthusiasm when we were talking about this week before we hopped on air because game days in town, top 10 matchups in Autzen Stadium, and with that comes a lot of recruits. So tell me about a few of the guys that are coming down to Eugene.
Yeah, this could well be the most talented group of recruits that Oregon has hosted so far this season. Just a lot of really heavy hitters. You know, we can start in 2023. Actually, no, sorry, I take that back. We'll get to 2023 in a second, but I think the real storyline, just in terms of who's going to be here, in Eugene rather, is Modern Day is bringing so many guys to Oregon this weekend. Obviously, we all know about Modern Day. I just did a quick Command F on my list, and I want to say it's like around 10-plus guys, Modern Day #1 team in the country after taking down St. John Bosco earlier this season. Some of the big headliner names there, you have 2024 quarterback Elijah Brown, who has not lost a game at the high school level, started as a true freshman or just as a freshman, I guess, at Modern Day. You got edge rusher Aiden Breland, Brandon Baker, the elite offensive lineman. I think the Ducks are in an awesome spot there. He's an Oregon legacy. Another offensive lineman, DeAndre Carter. So there's just so much talent coming from Santa Ana, Modern Day. And then you also have another guy out in my neck of the woods, 2024 quarterback Miles Jackson. I know he loves Oregon. The Oregon staff is super high on him. And then, can I get into some of these 2023 names too, or I don't know if you wanted me to do it right away.
Before you do get into those 2023, you mentioned two quarterbacks there that are coming up to Eugene this weekend to face for the game against UCLA. But with Dante Moore, I heard reports of him enrolling early. I think he's going to enroll in the winter. At the quarterback position, in terms of the recruits that Oregon is bringing in, how does Dante Moore coming up a little bit earlier sort of affect all of that?
Yeah, I think with that, with Dante Moore coming in early, it's exactly what you want. You want to have your, headliner. You want as many guys to get enrolled early as you can, right? But it seems like it's a little bit more important at the quarterback position, especially because we don't know what's going to happen with Bo Nix following this season. He does have more season eligibility, but you want to get your quarterbacks on campus, adjusted to the, college way of life, get his nose in the playbook, get adjusted to Kenny Dillingham's offense. So absolutely a major plus if he does end up enrolling early. I haven't been able to confirm that personally, but I also have seen those reports, and that would be a major bonus for Oregon. So now it's, you got to keep Dante committed. I don't think there's a lot of concern there right now. Not a lot of smoke about a decommitment or anything, so he looks solid. But, on a similar note, you got to turn the page to 2024 and really start prioritizing some of those guys. And Elijah Brown, Miles Jackson, two of the best in Southern California, certainly. And Elijah Brown is just phenomenal. I've gotten to see him play 3 times this year, and he's every bit of the hype that he receives.
So when you're recruiting a quarterback, you want him to be the face of your program for multiple years, not just one, but you also can't bank on a recruit being that guy coming right out of high school. If we could, it would have been Ty Thompson as the starting quarterback for the last 2 years. But when looking at that from a recruiter's perspective, what do you want to do at that quarterback position where only one guy can play? It's a highly touted position, and ideally you want your starter to play for multiple years, but Oregon is recruiting multiple guys in multiple different recruiting classes that are all highly touted at the quarterback position.
Yeah, the quarterback position is kind of a tricky one to recruit, especially if you look at Oregon in recent years, right? Bringing in Bo Nix, Anthony Brown, both transfer guys, and you can dial it back to Vernon Adams and Dakota Prukop if you want as well. But the point I'm really getting at is they haven't really had that long-term, multi-year starter guy, which you don't always have to have. But I think for Oregon, just with where they're at right now, trying to get to a national championship, I think that some continuity at the position could really help them. They had that continuity with Justin Herbert, but we all know how handcuffed he was in that offense and how he's thriving in the NFL now. So I think you definitely want to prioritize and identify some really key guys early on in the cycle. Some schools have a different way of handling it, and they say, hey, you're the only guy we're going to offer. And then that just really shows how prioritized they are. But I don't think that always bodes too well for modern recruiting, because you just got to give yourself options, even if that comes off, I guess, as a bad thing for some recruits. But certainly identifying these guys early, getting them on campus early. I know Elijah Brown's been to Oregon before, as has Miles Jackson. That they're going to be two big players for Oregon on the recruiting trail at quarterback. And I know that for Elijah Brown, I mean, that's a guy with Lincoln Riley at USC now, a top Southern California guy. I saw Lincoln Riley in attendance at the modern-day St. John Bosco game that when I was covering that game. And, that's a guy that you feel like they can't let get out of Los Angeles for USC's sake. But, obviously Oregon and the handful of other schools are going to look to have something to say there. So the quarterback position is always a fun one to watch. Certainly a position that you can build around if you're able to get someone in there early. And we're kind of still waiting to see that domino effect a little bit from Dante Moore, who committed back in July to Oregon. They've been getting some good pieces here and there, but I don't think we really saw that explosion that a lot of us were expecting. But I know that Oregon's still hard at work to get some guys here in 2023.
Let's revert our attention back to Autzen Stadium this weekend. You mentioned the 2024 guys that are coming to town. What about the 2023 recruits that are going to be at Autzen?
Yeah. So I'll start off with a handful of guys that are coming that are already committed to Oregon, actually, here in the 2023 class. You have defensive lineman Tavita Pomee, one of the earliest commits in this 23 class for Dan Lanning out of the state of Utah. Really like how he is as a prospect. Just not really a bad piece of weight on him. I think he's already in the neighborhood of 300 pounds as a senior in high school, and we know how kind the state of Utah has been to Oregon, how important it's been. You also have safety Cody DeCambra, who's committed out of Las Vegas, Bishop Gorman, linebacker Jerry Mixon out of San Francisco, Sacred Heart Cathedral, and then the two big names that are a little bit newer here that I've been able to confirm in just the past hour or so. Really, you have Notre Dame safety commit Peyton Bowen out of Denton, Texas, and Peyton Bowen is really one of the best talents in the country. Certainly at safety. I'm looking at 247's composite right now, has him as the number 2 safety in the country, number 24 overall prospect. He's been committed to Oregon. He's been committed to Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish, since New Year's Day of this year. And then the other big name that is kind of catches some eyes is another guy from Bishop Gorman in the Vegas area, and that's Wisconsin wide receiver commit Trek Kekahuna. I'm hoping I'm saying that right, but that's definitely an interesting guy to keep an eye on here, as Oregon already has a couple of wideouts committed in 2023. But like we've talked about with all of these modern-day guys coming in, that's going to be a pipeline that Oregon is going to continue working on, with Lipe Moala hopping in a little bit ago. But Bishop Gorman's another national powerhouse that you definitely want to have strong ties to, and Oregon's making sure of that.
Is that really a focus that you've seen in Oregon's recruiting so far, as under Dan Lanning, has been trying to get those ties to these big-time high schools that will churn out the products consistently, that Oregon wants to have that pipeline to those big schools?
Oh, no doubt. And I think it goes beyond, just individual schools. I think you could go as far as saying states or cities. Certainly with Modern Day and St. John Bosco, that's been a major priority. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a pipeline to those schools? But it really helps Oregon, I think, that they already have multiple guys from those schools. You got Chris Hudson, who's already there. He went to Bosco. Suava Pody, he went to Bosco. And then you have Mace Funa, Keon Ware-Hudson out of Modern Day. There's some more that we could mention there, but those are just some that come to mind right away. Sean Dollars went to Modern Day for his final season after transferring from Rancho Cucamonga. So I think you obviously want to have these schools that are close. Oregon's still pursuing Mateo Uyunglele from St. John Bosco. And then also you got to push into these powerhouse states, or, just some of the best states in the country, and that's California, Texas, and Florida. Oregon's done a much better job recruiting the state of Texas rather than Florida so far. But if you can set up good roots in these, really talent-rich hotbeds, it's only going to pay dividends on the recruiting trail. We see that with the guys that they're bringing in to visit. And also, you can even dial it back further and look at how Dan Lanning went about assembling this staff. Very, very purposeful, not going to rush it. And, you get yourself connections throughout various pockets of the country, and that's the smart way to do it, in my opinion.
We've seen an influx of recruits coming up this weekend. What sort of factors into that? Was it planned from the jump for them to be up this weekend? Is it the top 10 matchup? Is it College game day being in town? What's the draw to Autzen Stadium specifically for this game?
Yeah, you named a lot of good factors there, Ryan. I think that part of it has to do with the fact that Oregon is, at home and they have a game to showcase. They're playing some of their best football. And it's a huge matchup. Only helps that game day is going to be there, obviously. So you can just showcase more of the program, not only with just what you see on the field, but you can say, hey, look, College game day chose to come out to Eugene. Oddly enough, coincidentally, this is the second year in a row that it's been a UCLA-Oregon game day for the Ducks. But it's like, hey, we're a top destination here in Eugene for college football. It's going to be a packed house at Autzen. The atmosphere is going to be insane. And then you just figure that that's going to just ramp recruiting interest up a whole nother notch with all the attraction around the city and the school. And then if they're able to come away with this win over UCLA, that'd be a huge win over a top 10 opponent that they can, just stack on their resume and just show that they can compete and win these big-time games.
Well, it should be a heck of a weekend at Autzen Stadium from a recruiting front, from a football front, all of the above. Max, we always appreciate you joining us and giving us the scoop. Max Torres on the Oregon Man Clinic's hotline. Before we let you go, let the listeners know where they can find you and your work.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, Ryan. Always a pleasure to talk to you. You can find me on Twitter at @mtorresports. That's the quickest way to get my updates on the recruiting front and all things Oregon. You can also find and read my written work on ducksdigest.com, really ramping up the recruiting. And then you can listen to my podcast, the Ducks Dish Podcast, and find me on YouTube at Oregon Football Max Torres.
Thank you, Max. We always appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for having me.